From my home in Qingdao, China, I flew to Lhasa, Tibet. Entering the city, I was immediately overwhelmed with nostalgia, as I had been here before with Dave in 2007. We rode mountain bikes from Lhasa to Mount Everest Base Camp and down into Kathmandu, Nepal. With the rest of my climbing team driving up from Nepal, I needed to continue west across the Tibetan Plateau to meet them. On the way, I spent a day in Shigatse, the second largest city in Tibet. Thinking back to the bike trip a decade earlier, I didn't have favorable memories of this city. However, spending a gorgeous afternoon exploring the Tashi Lumpo Monastery and the surrounding hills helped me realize what a gem this city really is. The next day, I reached a small village called Tingri. There, I met up with the SummitClimb team, including Patrick. We took a hike up to the Gelung Monastery to catch up.
Everest is to the right, Choyu is to the left.
This quickly turned into a disagreement of which mountains we could see. That was Everest on the left, and Cho Oyu was on the right. Sorry, Patrick, you were wrong.
All right, we'll see. We have it on video.
The next day, we did an acclimatization hike up a local peak with the team. It was hard to take it slow, but doing so made the climb easy.
All right, so you see these pickup trucks here? They carry all of our gear to base camp. It's kind of stupid.
The drive from Tingri heads back towards Shigatse, but then takes a turn south at the entrance to the Mount Everest National Park. It continues through the town of Chietsun before heading up the nauseating switchbacks of the Golula Pass. The top of the pass, at 5,198 meters, offers one of the best views of the Himalayas. Coming down from Golula Pass, you reach Jiaxi Zongcun, where we picked up last-minute Oreos. Another couple of hours, and we pulled up to the new Rongbuk Monastery. And permit check. You'll likely have to do a handful of these as you travel through Tibet.
All right, we're here. What do you think?
Made it.
We made it?
Almost made it. We have to get past this final check.
Yeah, we got some shipping container people who are going to come out and give us some grief, I'm sure.
After a relatively minimal amount of grief, we were let through. Finally, we arrived at Chinese base camp. All of us took our time putting our camp together, except for this man, Zhangbu, our head Sherpa. He has summited Everest 17 times and was always hustling and smiling. The sun dipped behind the mountains and I headed to my tent. I had wanted to wait for the sunbeams to get up, but the whipping of the prayer flags against my tent that fellow climber Martin had put up the night before urged me out. We all started rustling and got to the first order of business, emptying our pee bottles. After taking care of the morning business, we headed into our black Tibetan tea house-themed tent and warmed up with tea while the kitchen boys, as they're called, Nobu and Tashi, brought in breakfast.
This is our first morning at base camp. It's pretty cold this morning, minus 12. Just had breakfast and we're told our jobs for the day are to sort our gear that's going to go up to interim camp and then advanced base camp.
The Sherpas sorted gear, we sorted gear. The goal was to get everything ready for moving up the mountain. While the yaks would be constantly traveling between the camps, this first big movement of equipment is when you want to organize everything you will need for higher up. The better you can plan for what you need at successive camps, the less shuffling of gear and carrying you will have to do later on. Patrick and I took things slow. We drank as much water as possible. It was hard to stay focused on a task as Everest and all the possibilities stood in front of us. Staring at the peak, you squint your eyes to find Camp 3, the exit cracks, and the 3 steps. Large cliffs that are known as the crux of the North Ridge route. To calm my nerves, I wandered around for a peaceful spot to do some deep breathing. I would do 3 rounds of 30 breaths, On the 30th breath, I would exhale completely and envision myself moving up the mountain framed in prayer flags. The scripts on the flags are blessings, and the constant Tibetan winds disperse them.
We've been at base camp for 3 days now, at Chinese base camp. We each have our own individual tents. Mine is right here. And the view of Everest from here is ridiculous. It's so hard to stop taking pictures of this mountain. Awesome.
Yaks weigh the same amount as 2 grand pianos. They can survive winters at high altitudes where the temperatures can get down to negative 40 degrees. And lucky for us, they can carry heavy loads at high altitude. To make use of the time, I admired the view. Washed clothes, the whole SummitClimb team decided to make it a group effort, and we all left camp together. The trail was steep out of the gate, passed by a valley of prayer flags, and came to a cliff band where other teams were practicing their technical skills. We decided to take a quick break. As we got higher up, the rocks became less and less stable. We got back to our tent just in time for our own dinner. Jongbu lit the heater.
The chicken noodle soup without the chicken and without the noodles, that was really good. It is. A spoonful of popcorn makes the medicine go down.
Then Jongbu, in full smile, surprised us with maybe the highest apple pie in the world. While we were all enjoying the comforts of base camp, we knew they wouldn't last. Tomorrow, we would move up the mountain.